No one likes a retread head coach. It feels like secondhand shopping or buying a car with over 100,000 miles. In this great Seahawks head coaching search of 2023, many Seahawks fans would prefer a fresh face for the position. They want that new car smell. So when Mike Vrabel was announced as a man of interest by the Seahawks front office for the position, he drew some quick reflex knee-jerk rejection from the fan base, casting Mike away as a non-viable option, like those faulty Spartan babies after inspection. Yet now that we have learned that the Seahawks are indeed interested in meeting with Vrabel, he does deserve probably here a second look from the fan base. And before we get into the negative narratives surrounding him, both valid and invalid, let's look at first what Vrabel brings to the table. For though he is a defensive-minded head coach, he has many distinct differences from Coach Carroll or even Dan Quinn for that matter. One of the hallmarks of Vrabel's defensive strategy is versatility. He doesn't adhere rigidly to a single scheme, but rather tailors his defensive approach to the strengths of his roster and the challenges posed by opposing offenses. Whether it's a 3-4 or 4-3 alignment, Vrabel's defenses are characterized by flexibility, allowing players to seamlessly transition between roles and positions. Mike Vrabel's defensive units are often defined by their ability to generate pressure on the quarterback. Aggressive and disruptive, his defenses aim to mess up the timing of the opposing offenses through a mix of blitz packages, stunts, and creative alignments. This aggressive mindset is a reflection of Vrabel's own playing days as a fearsome linebacker, and he instills that same ferocity in his defensive players. These aforementioned qualities, the lot of them, are Vrabel's stock and trade and have been missing from the Seahawks defense for ages. Vrabel will push the ball forward when it comes to the defense. The schematic limitations of Carroll's dusty defenses, the clinging to old concepts, will be a thing of the past if Vrabel takes over. As a coach, Mike demands discipline and toughness from his players, two very important traits if you're going to play good to great football, and again, sorely missing from recent Seahawks teams. His players love to play for him, while he also gets them to play hard for him every single week. When the Titans still had some good talent in 2021, Vrabel walked into Seattle, battered the Seahawks on both lines of scrimmage, and hung 33 points on Carroll's defense. This past year, with a heavily reduced team from that 2021 version and injured across the board on his defense, Vrabel still had the more talented Seahawks team clawing and scratching and fighting to come away with the win when they had something to play for, and the Titans did not.
An all-start, and that's why Vrabel's going to take multiple delay of games. This is a chess game between these two. Gene, when you take multiple delay of games, there's a penalty eventually.
That's correct, Tony, and the penalty will turn into an unsportsmanlike.
One of the few times you'll see the Dark Lord Emperor Belichick trolled on a football field. What else does Vrabel bring with his background? First, he actually played in the NFL for well over a decade. He played multiple linebacker positions, special teams, and even tight end when the team needed a touchdown. He was also a starter and key member of 3 of those Patriot teams that won Super Bowls. Reaching the mountaintop 3 times over, he brings a champion's gravitas whenever he speaks. Mike Vrabel was a defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans for a year before being tabbed to be the next head coach by the Titans. Over the last 5 years, he's amassed a 54-45 record, his best season there reaching the conference championship with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. No easy accomplishment. He maximizes the talent he's given to the tune of being named the 2021 NFL Coach of the Year. So why are so many Seahawks fans lukewarm to out on Mike Vrabel? He was just fired. While it's true Vrabel was let go this offseason, the Titans were toying with the idea of trying to find a trade partner for him before he put the kibosh on that, wanting to pick his own next path if the team was really truly done with him. After going 12-5 in the 2021 season, the Titans went 7-10 and 6-11 over the next 2 years. It would be easy to simply look at the recent records and say he was losing the team, when in actuality it was more like they were losing the talent. Since the conference championship run in 2020 alone, the team has had 5 whole new starters on that offensive line, with young, still finding their way replacements. Wide receivers, Corey Davis and A.J. Brown are long gone, with DeAndre Hopkins and his graying dreads trying to pick up the slack for the slow development of Treylon Burks, the man they traded A.J. for, but who has not yet been up to the task of even being the number 2 receiver. Steady tight end Jonnu Smith also left for greener free agent pastures. The cupboard became Bear. Ryan Tannehill seems to have gotten old really fast, like the guy that drank the wrong cup in Indiana Jones 3. The team threw a third-round pick at Malik Willis to replace Tannehill, and then this last year tossed another second-round pick at the position to replace Tannehill because Willis sucked. At the same time, Tannehill was carrying the second highest cap hit in the entire NFL, coming off the previous year where he had the highest cap hit, limiting the Titans' ability to spend. On the other side of the ball, it was much of the same story, with really only Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons, and Harold Landry remaining from that 2020 conference championship defense. The losses and turnover wouldn't have been so crippling if not for the fact that the Titans front office was drafting like they were blindly throwing darts at a board. Just look at Vrabel's reaction in the war room to learning A.J. Brown was being traded. Pretty understandable disgust at this point, right? The low point of talent hit this year. No coach was taking this team anywhere. In many respects, they were set up to fail, as two of his former better players discussed on a recent episode of Bussin' with the Boys.
I don't know why, because it was very obvious early in the season that, like, just from an overall talent standpoint, like there was a lot of transition going on. A lot of guys that were used to be there aren't there. Like, you guys didn't have the ability to be true like contenders as the Titans had been in like 3 years past.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, it's not Vrabel's job to bring in new players during the season. It's the GM's job. Like, Vrabel is the dude that has proven he can have success with a lesser talented team. Like when you got hurt and we have running backs by committee and we had the most injuries in NFL history and we still end up getting the 1 seed.
Hanging the "been fired" sign around Vrabel's neck, while technically true, fails to capture the Tennessee situation properly. Few first-time coaches ever have the kind of success that Vrabel has had with the Titans. And when you look through 4 decades of recent football history in the NFL, those coaches that have had some early success at their first stop tend to have more of the same at their second, if not even more so. So what else do we got? What other lazy narratives exist out there for why Vrabel shouldn't even be considered a head coaching candidate for this position? He's a defensive coach, and they don't care about offense. The very first offensive coordinator hire Mike Vrabel made in his life was Matt LaFleur. He quickly ascended to becoming a head coach for the Green Bay Packers, and a good one at that. Vrabel replaced him with Arthur Smith, who quickly ascended to becoming a head coach in Atlanta. If Mike Vrabel was only laser focused in on the defense, these kind of promotions would have never have happened. Now, is he going to build a high-powered passing attack and a spinning scoreboard that looks like a national debt clock? No, but we'll get back to that here in a second. Let's first look at the true positives and negatives that Mike Vrabel brings to the table as a potential Seahawks head coach. First, on the positive side of things, Vrabel will build a quality defense. It will be a modernized defense, disguising looks, bringing pressure, and embracing complexity. There is little doubt that Vrabel would improve the performance of this defense immediately. Next, he knows how to connect with his players. This new generation of players seems a little harder to motivate and get them to fully buy in. Maybe it's being a former player and Super Bowl champ, but he's developed the right messaging to get these young men on board. His teams always play hard. This one goes in tandem with the ability to connect with players. Whether it was stars or third stringers, Vrabel's charismatic and straightforward manner had everyone in that locker room playing hard for him every single week. He knows what buttons to push and how to push them hard without getting his players pissed off or checked out. His players seem to love him. Oftentimes, hard-ass coaches can burn players out. Vrabel seems to have found the right balance of being able to tell it like it is without coming off like an asshole. Easier said than done. Lastly, he is likely to hire a good offensive coordinator. Vrabel hired LaFleur, who became a head coach, and Arthur Smith, who also experienced the same. Now Smith is available, and I'd suspect that if Vrabel is hired here, he'd bring Smith with him. Even if Smith doesn't come, Vrabel still has a good track record of hiring smart offensive minds. When it comes to the negative side of things, let's start with the conservative offensive nature that Vrabel's going to bring. The Titans leaned more towards a 50-50 split to pass run rate, and Vrabel would probably institute something similar here. He was able to build some very high-scoring offenses in Tennessee with this approach, but it's not the most exciting, and one could make the argument that the game is going to more of a pass-heavy approach. Certainly that the strength of your offense as it stands right now is with the pass catchers, and so maybe he would not be able to take full advantage of that. Next up, decision-making in-game is not always the best. This is something that you hear about from Titan fans, is that Vrabel can be a little dodgy with his in-game management. Use of timeouts, challenge flags, when to go for it, when to kick or punt. You do hear some feedback that he leaves you wanting in this area. Next, his style might be tough for some in this locker room. Coming off a gentle coach like Carroll, who was very player-friendly and hyper-aware about avoiding negativity, Vrabel might be a bit of a culture shock for some in the locker room. He's not going to put up with any BS, and this could be hard for some to deal with to the point of needing to move on from those said players. This wasn't an issue in Tennessee, but it's possible with a locker room full of players used to a wholly different style of coach that it does come into play. Lastly, on the negative side, can he coexist with the general manager? As I spoke about at the top, the reason Vrabel isn't in Tennessee anymore is as much to do with his disagreements with the front office and their approach. Will he be able to work with John Schneider? Or will his displeasure come back up again at the first couple of personnel decisions that don't go his way? I don't think this will be as much of an issue because John Schneider runs laps around the Titans front office. But it happened once, it can happen again, so it's possible. Picture Mike Vrabel on the sidelines, a stoic figure with a glint of intensity in his eyes, orchestrating a symphony of strategic brilliance. His coaching style is a kaleidoscope of innovation and adaptability. In an era where the game evolves at breakneck speed, Vrabel is the maestro, orchestrating harmonies that keep those opponents guessing. A true tactician, Mike Vrabel's playbook is not just a collection of X's and O's, but a narrative that unfolds with unpredictability. His teams don't just play, but dance on the edge of chaos, embracing uncertainty with a confidence that only a maverick can exude. He's the kind of coach that despises losing, down to his mortal soul.
Mike said we need to win for a lot of reasons.
Expand on.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Coach Vrabel will look for any edge anywhere, do whatever it takes, and he knows what it takes to be a champion. Mike Vrabel, maybe not the coach you think you want, but maybe just the coach you need. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.
Would you cut your dick off for a Super Bowl?
Oh, been married 20 years. Yeah, probably.
You've got 3.
As a player. I guess I'll be married for 20 years one day.